But let's keep going, and now we're going to turn our attention to video, digital video to be precise. Hang on, let's get my clicker working. Oh, on early there. So we're going to have...
The news connects us. Lets us share moments together. Understand the world. That's why Reuters has been bringing you the news for over 160 years. You may not have seen us behind the anchor's desk, but we were there on the front lines. But somewhere along the way, life changed and TV news got lost. We think it's time the news caught up with you, so we created Reuters TV. It's your news when you want it. Straight from the source, and made to fit your day. Just press play. Introducing Reuters TV.
So that was a far better intro than I could have done, so I'm glad I clicked the button. So I'd like to welcome on stage with me Jeff Perkins, Commercial Director of Reuters EMEA. Jeff is a seasoned commercial director with more than 21 years of experience in media and publishing, including Telegraph, BBC Worldwide, and EMEA. He joined Reuters over 5 years ago and has worked both in New York and London, just recently back from New York. And more recently, he worked on the launch of Reuters TV, as we've just seen there, and continuing to work on an extension to new platforms and connected devices. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jeff on stage, and we will have a fireside chat without a fire. Please take a seat. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
First of all, obviously Reuters have been on a journey, and you know better than I. Reuters is 160 years old of news, content, and generation. What's the reasoning behind your decision to move in this direction with Reuters TV?
There's a piece of a video that says that TV news got lost somewhere along the way, and it goes to some of the things that Kirk was just talking about there, is that if you look at, we're a news organisation, and we were kind of 18 months ago, closer to 2 years ago, I guess, looking at TV news. TV news still assumes that you have that 10 o'clock appointment on your sofa. TV news still assumes that it can serve you content to a length and to an order of priority, which it has edited for you, okay? So TV news is still distributed. It still looks a bit like it looked 20, 30, 40 years ago. And we were looking at, other content areas. We look at, how we consume music using Spotify, how we might consume film or entertainment using Netflix, and thinking, well, why hasn't that happened in TV news? Why are we still being given TV news that assumes that you and I have got the same interests?
So you've basically seen the pace, the disruption, but as a business, how have you then obviously adapted, evolved to basically find your consumers in?
We saw an incredible amount of disruption in these other kind of content areas, other industry sectors, and we weren't seeing the same amount of disruption in TV news. So could we build a product? Could we get closer to that more on-demand, that more relevant, that more personal experience that you rightly expect, but you're not seeing in TV news distribution? That was the ambition for us going back 2 years.
Yeah. And in terms of your consumers, what were they expecting? What were they looking for? How do they want to get in touch with the content that you have?
Why wouldn't they expect to get what they get in TV news that they get in film and entertainment? You and I have completely different interests. There'll be people in this room that may live in different parts of the UK. There will be people that work across different time zones. Why can't they find something that is up to date, that is relevant for their interests? Something that reflects the fact that you and I have got different interests. We have that expectation around everything else, but we weren't seeing it in TV news. And us as publishers, we are a news organisation. We've been producing, as you say, news for more than 160 years. We have to be committed to innovating in our space. Yeah, and this was an opportunity to really give those consumers a more on-demand, a more relevant experience.
So at what point within terms of the whole life cycle of the product, in terms of product development, and just internally within Reuters, did it type of become apparent that maybe you were behind the curve, or needs to re-innovate in terms of how you're producing content and, again, the teams and so on and so forth?
Listen, if you
Without
think
giving too much away? Or
No. It touches on a really good point. If you think about the nature of our business, Reuters is famously a breaking news organisation, okay? If Reuters say a piece of news happened this afternoon, you tend to believe it happens, okay? We have that kind of that credibility, that authenticity. We tend to verify that things happened. If you then want opinion, you may go to other news organisations. We tend to do breaking news, okay? Now, breaking news has changed for us massively. Okay? Think about the advent of social media. If something terrible happens this afternoon in Tottenham Court Road, the chances are the first person to take a picture will be you on your smartphone. Yeah? 10 years ago, that image would have come from us. Yeah? That breaking news information would have come from us. So that whole world of news has changed.
And the flow of information.
The flow of information, the sheer weight of information. So you were just asking there about, users. The kind of the testing we did ahead of launch was lots of people were saying, look, there is just so much information on Facebook and Twitter. I know somewhere in there's something relevant for me because I'm following all these brands, I'm following all these people. I just can't get to what parts I think are relevant for me at the time that I want it. Mm-hmm. So, it's kind of in this sort of background of all of this that as a news organisation we think, right, we're going to have to really move forward now and actually accelerate our pace of change quite quickly.
So as a business, how did you plan for that? What were the stepping stones to get to where you are now?
It takes quite a long time, it takes quite a lot of money, so if anybody's thinking of doing it, there's a sizable investment. We have to think very, very carefully about the team of people that you need to do this, about the talent pool you need to do this. And I hear, with other publishers, this can be quite a challenge. So if you think about Reuters TV, I think with the exception of the editorial staff, every other person involved in that project over the last 2 years is new. Yeah. So we've had to go outside of our organisation. We've had to go outside of the immediate pool of competitors that you might try and get talent from. We've had to try and get talent in from Silicon Valley. Wherever those people might be, we've had to recruit to really staff up for a very, very different world for us.
And does that then cause disruption internally in terms of bringing people who are not necessarily from traditional media? So how does that work as a dynamic internally?
It's an interesting dynamic. If on one floor of your building you've got this great new product which is getting lots of investment, it can cause people to say, hang on a second, why am I not working on that? But we had to be very, very careful and very, very clear to people internally is that there's a very, very different skill set needed to develop news for the platform that you've just seen than what we've historically done. Mm-hmm. So as I say, with the exception of the editorial direction, when we think about product, marketing, app development, design, engineers, technologists, they've all had to come from outside of our business and probably from outside the news sphere, to be honest.
Yeah. In terms of the roadmap and where you're at now, obviously great video, the product is live and more products coming up. Where do you see the next iterations? I mean, obviously difficult to try and predict the future, but how do you see that rolling out in terms of how audiences, as in you and I and everyone here, how they're consuming content and how you're going to touch them, basically?
I think you have to start by listening to the audiences. I think we are hopefully now as publishers and hopefully brands are recognising this. We're getting back to producing premium content, relevant content. We're getting back to the storytelling that Kirk just talked about. We're storytellers. We've been telling the world stories for a long, long, long time. So you have to listen to those audiences before you think about the next iteration, before you think about the next development. This is no secret, we launched initially in February to iOS smartphone, then to tablet in June. We'll be ready for Apple TV in November. We'll be ready for Android in Jan 2016. Mm-hmm. Why do we make some of those decisions? We've got a good relationship as a business with Apple. Once you've got a good relationship with Apple, you tend to want to keep a good relationship with Apple. So it kind of makes sense for us to launch iOS first. We initially launched to the US and the UK. So why wouldn't you launch to your biggest markets first when you're trying to find a kind of scale of audience? So there are plans to roll that out globally. Mm-hmm. But all of these things take time. It's not going to happen right here, right now. I think we're in month number 8 or 9. This is not supposed to be a project that ends at the end of this year. This is going to roll into next year. And we have to keep listening to the audience and what they want from it.
And as you look to grow audience, look to grow market, how are you making that decision making? Is that from data? Is that obviously you're listening to consumers? So consumers will obviously drive part of the product map, but obviously you will have ambitions to look into different markets in terms of how the type of commercial upside will drive that. So there's a commercial aspect driving it and also a consumer aspect. Yeah. How do you analyze that internally? What's the decision making?
The consumer aspect has to be, look, unless I can connect relevant content to relevant audiences, I probably don't have a commercial business after that. I have to have those first two to be able to have something that I can take to my clients. So it's all going to fall down unless I can get the first two correctly. We have instincts. We have things that we think are right. We have kind of market demands that we think, that we can meet. We match that with the research and the data that we're getting from users. And the answer is going to be some combination of both of those things. Yep. There's no perfect solution to it. But as I say, you have to be constantly listening. You have to be constantly watching how the audience are behaving. And we've changed some things. Listen, we're not saying we got this right first time. And again, if you're thinking about doing this, you have to be prepared to be a little bit malleable. You will make some mistakes. Some things you thought were great ideas at the beginning weren't great ideas. We launched in February, and we had a service within Reuters TV called Live Feeds. The idea being, that you could watch live news broadcasts, or you could watch, I remember I used to turn it on and used to wait for like Obama in the White House to come up to that lectern and do his speech. Inevitably, he'll be 2 or 3 minutes late. Can you imagine as a user sitting there watching your phone, you're just looking at an empty lectern in the White House? It doesn't work. We thought it would work. So we've changed a few things as we go along. You have to be prepared to do that.
Again, and touching on user experience, obviously is key. As users, we are all consuming content. In terms of the users and their experience, how has that evolved over time? I think we discussed coming out here in terms of the types of content, the length of content that you're producing. How does that work, and what do you think is the right type of content for the type of users, for the type of content you're producing?
Yeah, I mean, if there's anybody in the room that hasn't downloaded Reuters TV, I don't know who you might be, but you should probably do that, and you'll get some sense of how it works. But this enables you to personalize your news experience, okay? So you can choose a length of news show from 5 minutes to 30 minutes. It's entirely up to you, okay? You can choose to have this automatically download to your phone in the morning. So at 6:30 every morning, I have a 15-minute news show downloaded to my phone. So by the time I get on the train, I don't have to worry about Wi-Fi connectivity and all those kind of problems, yeah? So you've then got me for that 15 minutes. You've then got that really, really engaged audience. The really clever part is that the algorithm understands from your behaviors what types of news you're interested in. So it understands more from your negative behaviors. If you are scrolling past UK business stories, it will start to serve you less and less UK business stories. You and I should both be able to download the app now, and by tomorrow be seeing a different news show, okay? So we are learning from that all the time. We're learning about the types of content that people are consuming. We are still going to be a business and financial news organisation. That's still going to be the bread and butter of what we do. So if you're coming to Reuters TV and you're expecting lots of information about Kim Kardashian, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed. But within the realms of what we do, you should be able to get that kind of more personalised news experience. We're finding at the moment, and we are bogged down with statistics. The one that stands out for me is that 81% of people that have downloaded the app are watching, on average, a 15-minute news show. So you can choose from 5 minutes to 30 minutes. They are choosing that 15-minute news show. Now, I think that's a pretty powerful thing. For us to be able to take out to brands and say, here you go, you've got an engaged user, they've chosen this experience, you're in their time. And as publishers, we need to be really, really careful about how we manage that time. Yeah, because as publishers in the room, we all know audiences, whether or not you call them users or viewers, are quite hard to come by and they're quite easy to lose. Yeah. So we need to be very, very careful about how we manage that time. But to think that you've got somebody on a mobile device for 15 minutes, I think it's a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah, I didn't know Kim Kardashian would come up in our discussion, so that's,
I'm here to
that's thrown me somewhat, yeah. But again, when you're talking to the agency side, you're having a very deep discussion, I'm guessing, in terms of, you've got users for 15 minutes, you know the type of content they're looking at, you've got pretty good audience data, and so therefore the power that you have as a brand, as a key audience that you're talking to those brands about, must give you a very strong position in terms of how you basically want to commercialize that 15 minutes that the user is spending on your content.
Yeah, and I think brands are really, really coming around to this, that we have to be very, very careful about how we manage that advertising experience. If I've worked so hard and invested so much money to develop this product, to get you this premium user and to get 15 minutes of their time, as a brand, and a publisher, we have a collective responsibility to make sure we manage that experience. So we have worked really, really hard to make sure that the advertising, so at the moment, the main kind of commercial model for us is the midstream video. So let's say you do download a 15-minute news show, you would expect to see after your first 2 news items, so probably about 2.5 minutes, after about 2.5 minutes, you'd expect to see the first advertising message. That is a 15-second midstream video. We have advertisers coming to us that desperately want to run 30 seconds. We have advertisers coming to us and say, we've created this brilliant piece of video and it's 1.5 minutes, can you use it? You can use it on YouTube when people are going there to follow your brand on your YouTube channel. You can't use it on this. This is a brand storytelling platform, yeah? We are storytellers as publishers. We have some legitimacy in that space. We are trying to work with brands and agencies that recognize the value of really strong video creative.
Yeah. And do you feel that you're then in a position to help influence the way that creative is being presented back to you?
Does anyone influence creative?
Well, there's a presentation on that later, I believe. Because at the end of the day, the brands are trying to reach your audience, and it's a key audience. It's a great demographic, and they want to reach out to them. And you don't want to bombard that audience with rubbish advertising, 1.5 minutes, the ads that don't fit into the type of content you're producing. But at the end of the day, it's a commercial venture. You need to monetize that product. So how are you able to type of go back to them and create that type of value proposition?
Yeah, listen, we are trying to work with brands. We're trying to work with their media agencies. We're trying to work with their creatives wherever we can. Yeah, we're trying to educate them as to how we think this product works best for them. We're trying to enlighten them with some of the audience research we've got. We've got lots of research that said, users really are offended by a 30-second ad. For some reason, it feels so much more than twice as long as 15 seconds. They're just turning away from it. So we can only give them as much information as they're willing to listen to, but we want to work with them as much as we possibly can. I don't believe that users are offended by good advertising. Yeah? Let me be the first person today to say ad blocking. Okay, there's a good reason people are blocking ads, because lots of advertising isn't particularly good. Yeah, and as publishers, we have to take some responsibility for that. As publishers, over the last 4 or 5 years, we have taken as much cash as we possibly could, as quick as we possibly could, and some of the advertising we've served in some of the formats, some of the times, hasn't been great. So we're trying to get back to connecting with people that really are committed to that strong brand storytelling. Who in this room is looking forward to John Lewis Christmas advert? Yeah, we're all excited about that. It's a brilliant piece of storytelling. It's become a kind of tent-pole moment in our season. If I served that in Reuters TV and it's a 15-second ad and it felt like it was part of the experience, nobody's going to be offended by that. That's really good advertising. That gets back to brand storytelling. It's just the fact we've been serving a lot of really, really bad advertising.
Yeah, we were discussing it earlier in terms of the quality of the audience, and from premium publishers, you want to protect that audience. Obviously, you've got to monetize that audience. But as an industry where almost some would say there's been a race to the bottom in terms of just filling ad slots and taking any creative or just a standard creative just because that's all you can take, it has affected the industry and the type of, not necessarily to give the PubMatic view, but I will do. PubMatic view on ad blocking is, there is a lot of responsibility from the publishers to take on board what they're putting on their sites and how they're presenting that to their users. If you've got a quality audience and you want to develop a rapport relationship with them and get them to come back to your site, you don't want to be serving them rubbish, would be the best word I can use on the stage.
Yeah, by whatever definition you use, whether or not they're users or viewers, they are one click away from doing something else. They're hard to find, as I say, and they're easy to lose. They're one click away from doing something else, going somewhere else, or just leaving and going to make a cup of tea. Something else. There is so much distraction, okay? So how you keep those people in that moment becomes a really, really precious thing. And we are starting to really wake up to the fact that audiences, are a really, really precious commodity. And we can't undervalue that. And it's our job, it's our responsibility as publishers to get that message out to leading brands, because they should care as much as we do about this.
I mean, that's perhaps looking more on the negative side, so positive in terms of the product and what that's brought to you. In terms of the audience and understanding the audience, and I guess the way that the buy side would perceive Reuters TV and the audience that you have, Has it opened up new commercial ventures? Because obviously...
So what's been really successful for us is this has opened up a brand new audience for us. Okay, so traditionally as Reuters.com, my Reuters.com business, you can imagine my typical user is likely to be in his early 40s. He probably works in banking, business and finance. He probably comes to our site because he needs to have that real-time information, the data analytics that quite nicely you showed from Bloomberg earlier. So that's kind of our Reuters.com audience. Our Reuters TV audience is skewing much, much younger. So we would never claim to be millennial. That's not what we're trying to do. But our Reuters TV audience is naturally that mobile first generation. So we are finding people that are much more in the kind of late 20s demographic than we've previously done. Now, as a legacy news organization, we've never given them a product, a platform, a service that probably was relevant for them. Why would they connect with us? You know, they probably see us as this quite stuffy, conservative, old news brand. But with Reuters TV, we've now connected with a younger audience of people. So that then becomes interesting for me because I'm trying to run a commercial business. So that's opened up new doors to speak to new brands, to new advertisers that, again, previously may not have connected with us. So that's become a really, really successful thing for us. And that's I think, you know, what we're interested in moving forward with next year.
And is that working client direct, agencies? Is that just across the board? Where are you finding the type of the money for that?
I think all publishers in the room are trying to do some combination of all those things. I think with a product that shows the amount of innovation that Reuters TV does, it has been easier to get those client direct conversations. Clients really want to know what's happening in the market. They want to be aligned with innovation. This really does show innovation. Clients quite rightly expect us as publishers to invest in what we're doing. Okay, you want me to spend with you? Prove that you're investing in your product. Yeah. So this has probably helped us get closer to client conversations than we have previously. We were saying, hi, we're from Reuters.com. Do you want to speak to us about advertising on our site? Yeah, this has kind of moved the conversation on, I think, to a more senior level. It's opened up some new client conversations.
And has that also helped with the editorial development of the product in terms of, you know, new audiences, which are obviously going to open up new advertisers? Does that then look at some of the direction you're going editorially? Or is editorial still king?
Editorially, it's opened up some really interesting conversations. Because as you can imagine, you know, when clients see something that shows a level of innovation, when you can prove to them the engagement you've got, clients then ask really thorny issues like, well, that's fantastic, but what if I wanted to do something a bit more integrated? What if I wanted to do something a bit more custom? Okay, so we are now in early conversations with some clients around, okay, would we create custom edit video that we ran in Reuters TV? If you're I don't know, let's say if you're a car client, you're interested in, you know, automation of, you know, cars, you're interested in intelligent vehicles, would we use the resources we've got to start to create custom video that you could then run as a native experience in Reuters TV? So we're beginning to have those early conversations. As you can imagine, some people in editorial think that's the brave new world, some people think that's the devil. So it's just starting. But if we want to commercialize what we're doing, that's where we're going to have to move to. And again, I think done properly, I don't think users or viewers are offended by that. You know, if it's still content that's relevant to them, I think they appreciate. You know, there are lots of publishers in the room that are doing this very, very well. It can be done well. It can be done really badly.
And in terms of the type of evolution of the business, what kind of you know, the feedback you've had from all aspects, from the users, from the agencies, you know, how is that affecting the next steps of the roadmap? What do you think that looks like based on what does a year look like from now for you?
I think I think if we think about where we are now, so we launched in February, so that makes this I don't know, month 8, month 9. Where we are right now on our roadmap is probably more around the marketing of the product. So what we know, and this sounds like a really dumb thing to say, but what we know is when people have downloaded it and used it, they liked it, okay? But if you came into this room this morning, you'd never heard of it, how could you be expected to use it, okay? So we're right in the middle of trying to get this out to more people to try and to test it, because then we can start to scale it. So we've come from the kind of product innovation. We think in the first 6 months, we've roughly got the product right. We've got a roadmap to roll it out to different platforms, and it's all about connected devices. But I think we're right in the heart now of trying to market this to get a more scalable audience and then to roll it out to different regions.
So are there any specific channels you're looking to market it on? Is it, I mean, what's the marketing type of plan in terms of you want as many people to download it and consume it?
That's beginning to give away some secrets.
Hopefully you've got 300 more downloads here today.
Let's hope so. What we know is working is that the types of audiences that are using Reuters TV tend to be, as I say, tend to be slightly younger, and they tend to be slightly more metropolitan. So if you think about US as being our obvious biggest market, we know already that it's skewing towards East Coast and West Coast. Yeah, that probably makes perfect sense. In the UK, you'd naturally imagine that your audience is going to be in London. So our marketing focus at the moment is probably more around those kind of greater metropolitan, those bigger kind of DMAs. That's where we're spending money currently in New York and currently in San Francisco, because that's probably where the audience is going to skew. It's going to skew towards kind of bigger city areas that have that more younger, mobile first, aspirational audience.
Yeah. And then again, from the knowledge you're getting, then you can look at potentially different countries where you can roll out, again, the adoption of just people, users that you think are going to be relevant to it.
Yeah, we'd love to. So we've got a global release to all app stores coming up in November. So we'll roll it out to all markets. That's not as easy as it sounds. Let's think about what we're going to do in Japan. Okay, is it an iOS market? Is it an Android market? They're going to want it in Japanese. They're going to want it in English. Think about the resource it would take to produce what we produce all in Japanese. Think about doing it in China, producing everything in simplified Chinese. It's a huge logistical operation. So we can have all of these great ambitions, but you have to make sure you are developing it at the right pace.
Yeah, sure. So what have been potentially, I'm not saying that's a challenge, that's obviously something you're looking at and assessing on a constant basis, but what have been over the course of the project, type of maybe the conflict areas or the issues that you found in terms of going to market that you're happy to talk about?
The going to market challenges are naturally when you launch something new, people get very, very excited about launch, people love the innovation, and people have that kind of wait and see moment. We've all done that as publishers. We've launched magazines, newspapers, websites, people go, that's fantastic, come back to me in 3 months' time, 6 months' time when you've got an audience. Right now, as a publisher, you want some money coming in through the door. Yeah? So there's kind of a challenge around that. You've touched upon the creative challenges. Not everybody wants to hear that we think we are trying to encourage them to have that 15-second creative. That becomes a creative challenge for us. We talked about some of the issues around talent and where we find talent. We found out in the early days that you might have this great editorial resource, but you might have your best staff writer that works on a particular industry sector, and as soon as you put him on camera, you realize that's not his thing. Yeah? So they're kind of, there are challenges around your kind of people issues internally. You have to try and get all of these things right at the same time.
Yeah. I guess that's how it leads us to wrap in terms of what you've learned. But what would be your type of 3 tips to develop a successful strategy in this space, looking, I guess, predominantly in the video space?
You have to start with the content. Okay, so you have to produce content from a place of authenticity. Okay, we are a news organization. We have some legitimacy in the news space. We probably have the resource to create, I don't know, fashion content, but you wouldn't believe it. Okay, so if you're a publisher in the room, make sure you're creating that content from a place of authenticity, where you've got credibility, where you can legitimately speak to audiences. The second would be, we talked about this, once you've got those audiences, you really need to be mindful of that audience experience. You need to cherish that audience because they've got so many other things they could be doing, viewing, seeing, clicking on. So you need to really, really cherish that audience because they're hard to come by and they're easy to lose. So be mindful of their expectations when they come to you and don't let them down their expectations. And the third thing, it probably sounds quite simple, but it's invest and innovate. We have a responsibility as publishers to innovate. Yeah, we can't just sit back and look at the market. As much as we love working with people like PubMatic, we can't allow the technology to dictate the market. We're the publishers. We have the content. We're the storytellers. We have to invest and innovate. And once you've done that, invest and innovate again, because this thing will go on and on and on. And it's really exciting. It's really, really exciting. It's a really challenging space to be in, and we shouldn't be shy to do it.
Cool. Well, thank you. I mean, I said it's very reassuring because, we have that conversation with publishers all day on different levels, and I'm sure most of them in the room are feeling different pain points, but there's huge opportunity. There's great audiences out there, and it's what you do with those audiences. PubMatic aside, we are really just the pipes that help connect the two, but it is understanding in terms of how the two align, but also how technology is driving the market forward.
Yeah, and we'd love to know. We'd love to know how, given what you've seen here and given all the conversations you have with these people in the room, how can you help us to achieve what we want to achieve? We're all open to learning from you guys. We'd love to know how this all works together.
We're working it out. We're getting there. So yeah, the courses today, obviously, the discussions. Jeff's going until lunch. In the first break, do grab them if you've got any questions to ask. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll escape. Thanks for that. Oh.